the Evolution Security Podcast. Hello, everybody. This is the Evolution Security Podcast, and we welcome you again to one of our Gear and Mindset episodes. Now, Eric, I'm glad we get to hang out here virtually, but man, I wish we could hang out more in person. I'm looking forward to that here pretty soon. But at least we get to do this, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is interesting when you think about it. This is like hanging out. It's not together,
Yeah.
but it's still edifying to me. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, definitely. It's been a great venture, and it's been rewarding because it really forces us to even, we always used to talk a lot anyway, but it kind of forces us to stay in touch with each other about every day.
Yeah.
We're constantly talking back and forth on podcast business, guests, new guests and whatnot, getting people lined up, checking calendars, etc. Well, bro, as we get into this, we have some pretty important news that you wanted to talk about. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, Aaron, a quick shout out to Robert Owens and BJJ of Olympia. Of course, a lot of folks know we've mentioned that gym quite a bit on here. Robert is actually who I got my blue belt from quite a few years ago. And to a lot of individuals, including you, I know that gym was very crucial in both of our paths because we use that gym multiple times to host DCQC. So if Craig's listening out there, you know, he loved coming to do an ECQC in Olympia. He just loved that location, and of course he got the opportunity to hang out with Chris LeBlanc and Rich Daniels, and you know, of course, Jeff Mao of Tenacor always came around for the class. But anyway, you know, unfortunately, some individual, and I think by the way the story sounds, and this was Robert's, I mean, he just always trying to help people out, you know, and it sounds like somebody they just let train probably at no cost. You know, it sounds like the guy was down and out. But anyway, he snuck into or broke into the gym and started a fire. And what's unfortunate is it sounds like, you know, he had been quoted, or excuse me, not necessarily quoted, but had been heard saying that he was distrustful of the military and law enforcement and said, you know, disparaging things about those two important entities to our freedom. And so, yeah, this guy didn't like the military and law enforcement. And, you know, that gym has a ton of veterans there and or active duty and law enforcement. So it sounds to me like he was trying to take out his belief system and start a fire there at that gym. So unfortunately, there was, you know, I don't know what the actual cost was to the gym, but it was a lot, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars of damage. You know, I need to ask to find out what that actual amount is. But anyway, yeah, man, you know, shout out and prayers to Robert Owens and my old teammates there at BJJ of Olympia. And it's just a tragedy. You know, it's unfortunate. But what we plan on doing is they have a GoFundMe page that we're going to post in the show notes, so that if any of our audience members out there feel compelled to do so, you know, even if it's just, you know, $5, 10, $20, you know, we're going to be helping as well. But yeah, just go out there and try to help them. I think there's been like $18,000 raised so far. And I also saw a post at my follow-on gym because I left BJJ Olympia to go train at another gym for a while, Jiu-Jitsu Dynamics with Will Haggerty. And they did a just a quick seminar and raised $3,500. So that was real
Good.
cool. But yeah, man, in that, it's just amazing, and it's clearly a guy had probably mental health problems. I don't know. Maybe he just, felt like he wanted to light the place on fire. But
So,
man,
bro, they actually apprehended this guy?
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The security cameras picked him up doing it, dummy.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, he's on.
he might have some mental issues.
Yeah,
That's a shame too.
yeah. But anyway, so we're gonna put that in the show notes. Anybody wants to go out and help, that would be much much appreciated. That's all I have on that, Aaron. What you want to talk about now?
Man, let's get into I think this is fun. I mentioned my new car the other day, my new Subaru BRZ, and man, that stock stereo is a hunk of crap, dude. And so I'm sorry, but I've kind of gotten obsessed with changing that thing out. And
Nah, not you.
man, it's just such a different world for me. I've had to learn so much about how to wire up a stereo. I was gonna get all this gear and have somebody install it for me, but I'm not doing that big of a actually not big of a system at all.
Mhm, mhm.
But it's almost like I feel like I'd be, wasting a fancy installer's time by taking it by there, and also, I might be able to save myself a couple $100.
And learn in the process, like you said.
Oh yeah. So I found this pretty cool company. Eric, I mean, you remember that company Kicker from Stillwater?
Yep. Hmm.
Well, I found a company that's similar to them, a company called Scar Audio, and they put out some great gear, and it's all reasonable. And so, I mean, this is one of my dash speakers. So this is a 3.5 inch with a silk dome tweeter. And interesting enough, buddy, the actual speaker coil is cone, excuse me, is fiberglass. So
Mm.
kind of interesting deal. This little guy will handle 60 watts RMS. So
Oh
I've got a
wow,
couple.
that's a
So I got
lot, man.
yeah.
RMS.
That's you can see, dude. That's a beefy magnet for a small speaker and tweeter. So I'm putting two of those in the dash. Yesterday, I spent a few hours putting some Scar 6.5 inch mid bass speakers in my doors. And boy, I learned a lot about that now too. I've never taken door panels off of my car. I felt kind of manly doing that stuff. I'm joking there, but so I've got those speakers installed already. I'm going to install these speakers probably tomorrow. I just needed a capacitor, because you need to use basically a passive crossover to block low frequencies. I think I lopped it off at about 600 hertz. So I mean, really,
Wow.
right there in the mid range. But so I'm getting all this stuff I'm getting basically is Scar. I've got nothing big but a 900-watt 5-channel amp to run those 6.5s off of, and these 3.5-inch dashes, and I'm putting a 8-inch sub in my trunk. And nothing big. I don't want big boomy bass, but that car's so small as it is, it's there's not it doesn't need a lot of stereo to it. But
What kind of are you gonna? What kind of box are you gonna be putting that 8 in?
buddy, there's another pretty well known car audio site called Crutchfield,
Oh yeah,
and
I bought
and
all kinds of stuff from them.
and they have this little thing. It's pretty cool. It's basically a 10-inch cube, 10 by 10 by 10 cube for 8-inch speakers. It's called a bass bunker,
Oh, cool.
and I'm sure I could get a bigger cab, but again, I need my trunk in that car is so freaking small. I so Eric, you can see, I mean, as an example, my little red Dr. Z over there,
Hmm.
that's about the biggest amp I can fit in that car
Wow.
without laying the seats down. So I'm trying to save space too.
Hmm.
So
Yep. Yep.
this amp that I've got's real small. I'm going to be able to mount it where the other amp was already. And then one last thing I never knew about is the fact that stock stereos, they don't have line outs in them. They just have speaker level line outs. So you have to have a line converter to
Hmm.
take that down. Basically, it's a almost like a dummy load of some sort that allows you to tap those speaker connections. I
Oh,
just
cool.
don't. I just don't want to change the head unit
Yeah.
in there
Right.
because,
Yeah. I don't blame you.
for one thing, did you want a decent touchscreen head unit? Dude, you're looking at $1,000 right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I would lose how I can control everything in my car from that. I'd have to go to the small little screen on my layout for my thing. I don't, my gauge layout. Sorry, you can do it, but I don't want to lose it off of that head unit. So I'm trying to avoid that. I may end up doing that someday, but again, I just like the form factor because I haven't seen any. I think the one I have is a 10-inch screen, but I don't think I've seen any. They're all bigger than that. So that's what I've been doing. I've been researching that like crazy today. Um, got a lot of stuff in my Amazon cart. I'm about to
Mm-hmm.
push the button for that. But there's so
Slick.
many little components I gotta get. And I'm still researching so I can try and get one order here done. But that's that on the stereo. But Eric, man, why don't I just go into accountability because we're gonna talk a little bit about accountability today, right?
Yep.
Is that all right with you?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So I feel like we spend a lot of time on here complaining about our 50-year-old body injuries, but it looks like I'm gonna have to go see an orthopedic surgeon about my ortho, I guess you just want to call them, not necessarily a surgeon, but I guess the ones that would do it. But my tennis elbow is not getting better. I've been
Hmm.
doing lots of rehab on it, man, icing it every night, all the, multiple times a day when I can. It just is not getting better. And,
Sorry to hear
again,
that.
I can't lift. I can't do jujitsu. I can't shoot two-handed. So, man, it's the most frustrating injury I've ever had. And hey, dude, I could deal with my neck before I got my neck fixed. I could deal with it more than this. I could at least do most of what I wanted to do. But so I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to be able to squeeze back into jujitsu. But I mean, I can't do hardly anything because it has to do with grip, right? So what I have been doing, I still have been dry firing, strong hand only. I've been doing reloads and things like that. And it's funny though, I can do push-ups and I've been doing body weight squats and treadmill, at least keeping myself active. But let's see here. I did go to the range last weekend. I can't remember how much I said because we actually did a show right after it, but went with my buddy. He had a new optic and we did that 10-yard method of getting a 50-yard zero. It's pretty amazing how that works.
As far as with rifle.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Pardon me,
Gotcha.
pardon me. Yeah,
Uh,
optic on his rifle.
and Aaron, that was what I was going to bring up. So, I mean, you can still shoot carbine.
Th-
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So,
I think there's it gets a little sore, but no, yeah, I can basically shoot rifle and carbine just fine. It's just that costs 3 times the cost
Yeah.
of 9 millimeter. Well, not that. I think it's double, right? So I'm just trying not to burn through many rounds on that. But I did. So after zeroing his optic, we did the fun walk back drill on a 10-inch piece of steel. As far back as we could go was 65 yards. So we walked back there and slowly as we if I'm sure people are familiar with the walk back
Mm.
drill. We made it back to 65 yards, which is where the road is going into the range. Hey, and that reminds me, Eric. So have we talked about the fact that Matt Reyna from Training Ground has basically just just turned over his range to EvoSec?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We've talked about it on here. Hmm.
So it's fun having quote my own range now, and so that's where we were.
Cool.
But lastly, after we did that walk back drill with the ARs, I went ahead and I shot 100 rounds strong hand only. You know,
So you're going to get a lot better at strong hand only then.
bro, that only that if I can get that down quicker and making sure I'm doing it clean, I bet you that alone will help me get master in IDPA.
Yeah, that's one of the stages in that qualifier that can cost you some points if you're dropping some for certain.
Yep, yep. But so that's my accountability. What you got, brother?
So number one, you started off with talking about our injuries. You know, unfortunately, I injured my back 2 times in 4 months. Right. And man, I'm feeling great right now. Of course, I just had a steroid shot a few weeks ago. But, here's one of the things, Aaron. I was, of course, I'm the primary coach for the morning daybreakers at my jiu-jitsu gym. And this epiphany came to me when I was, we were warming up right before class started. And I said, you know what, man? And I owe Nick Delgadillo an apology for one main reason is that barbell training. Some people have issues that can affect their abilities to do barbell training, at least real heavy. But it is true, man. If executed right, barbell training is one of the best bases there is. And over these last few years since 2018, I did less and less actual barbell training, or at least to a strength degree. Of course I've continued to do barbell, but to a degree that I really should have been. I believe I listened to some of the critics, and I listened to my own kinesiophobia about re-injuring. But you know what, Aaron? I added things up. When I stopped doing heavier squats or heavier deadlift, I got injured more. So I'm
Mm.
like, screw this, man. I'm back to doing barbell. So I I wrote down barbell is back. And so, man, I get a hold of this book up because it was a gift again from Nick Delgadillo. I've read this book many years ago, and Nick sent us as a gift. So I want to shout out to him. I started starting strength again this last week. I'm leaving my ego at the door, going extremely light. And if it takes me a year to get back over 300 pounds on some of my lifts, I'm cool with that. From, somebody that, at one point I had, a deadlift of 455 and a squat of 415, and I'm not worried about trying to get to that weight again. And I know for some of our listeners, that's not that big of a deal. But when I did that, I was only 195 pounds, 200 pounds, something like that. And so yeah, I made the decision. I'm back to doing barbell training as my rehab, and the very fact that I've gotten injured more after not doing the barbell training, I think that tells me something. I just need to strengthen everything again. Because at this point, Aaron, after this last injury, I'm like, man, I guess I'm gonna have to have disc replacement, and I still am possibly looking at that. But for right now, I'm back to lifting using a barbell training program. Back to using the novice program and linear progression. So I'm pretty pumped about that. So as far as a couple of other things that I kind of had an epiphany about too, and maybe not an epiphany, but Aaron, do you remember when we had Matt Pranka on and we were talking about Ben's Ben Stager's Dry Fire Reloaded
Oh
book?
yeah.
And I've had this book a long time. And yeah, there we go. Both of us generally don't have those books far away.
Oh,
And so
digressing
yeah,
a little bit.
yeah, got the starting strength there too. so so Aaron, I resembled one of his comments, and Matt said people don't use that book right. He said you have to read it like a book. And I'm just going to be honest. I did exactly like he said. He said some people grab it and they read some of it, but then they grab the drills they want to work on and they work on it.
Yeah,
Because Aaron, let's face
that's
it,
what I've done.
yep,
Hmm.
we've been dry firing for many many years. That has helped us meet quite a few goals. But Aaron, I thought, man, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and read the whole book, and I did. And man, there's so much golden nuggets in there that I didn't read the first time because I didn't read every bit of it.
So, bro, instead of sitting there working on, getting to a drill, stopping the reading, you just read without working on any of the drills.
Well,
That's
so I was still doing drills that I
sure.
had already planned.
Sure.
And
What
some,
I
and
mean
some,
is,
yeah.
sorry, bro.
Mhm.
What
Go.
I mean is, you weren't stopping at a point in that book and working on the drill that you were just reading. You read straight through.
Yep, read all the way through. From the beginning of till the end. And that is true, man. So individuals out there that might have this book, I implore you, like Matt Pranka said, read all the way through it because there's some gold in here. And Aaron, I think one of the most important things that we already know, Aaron, but sometimes you need to be reminded. When you're dry firing and live firing, you know, the points and the times are one aspect of it, but he cautions you not to get outcome based in this. And his main point is observe.
Yeah.
Really, really observe. And again, I know that's not novel to us or not novel to our audience members, but it's like we talk about sometimes how we like mental cues, like mental cues that we know. But
Hmm.
every now and then, those mental cues are important because it reinvigorates our thought process in that.
Well, bro, let me interject
Yep, go ahead.
because there's plenty of stuff that we know we need to do, but we kind of get focused on other things, and you kind of let that slip out of your mind. Good thing, and aside that kind of hits home on that is, bro, I've been getting bored playing guitar lately,
Hmm.
and it's because I've been kind of playing the same stuff. And then today I was at church, so I was playing at church this morning, and I started playing some Eric Johnson music that I hadn't played in a while. And that I was like, man, that was fun. And his music is darn difficult. It just gave me a something else to work on because yeah, I've been playing the same stuff. So on that point, I need to be reminded sometimes when you're shooting, especially live fire, you really can't focus on anything but one aspect at a time. But if you can, I find myself making sure that I'm observing and I'm making sure that I'm not putting as much input into the gun. So along those lines, I just wanted to make sure that I said that it's easy, as you know, I've played guitar for 35, 36 years, and you know, I can get bored just because I kind of let some stuff go by the wayside.
Yeah, very, very good salient point, buddy. And so I wasn't going to read a whole lot from this, but there's one part in this book that I think is pretty good. And Aaron, that's where he talks about what he calls the dry fire, live fire loop.
Hmm.
And so he says, I have described this phenomenon previously in other books as the live fire, dry fire loop. I still think this is the most effective way to explain the process. You figure out what techniques you want to perform, be it how you hold the gun, where you hold it, and when you reload it, or any other detail. You train yourself without using ammunition. You do thousands of repetitions in dry fire. You can then shoot live ammo and see what's what. You then make adjustments to your dry fire training to reflect what you learned in live fire. And that's all I'll say. But and there's several other points here, but that is the point. Is that he also makes the point that we've talked about this before too. Is that dry fire should be your primary training, and that your live fire is affirmation on what you've been doing in dry fire. Now you have to fire a live gun. You cannot mimic recoil. And so I think that's a great way of putting it, is that you observe what happens in live fire, and man, writing notes down, what did you observe and what do you really need to work on back in dry fire, again, that live fire, dry fire loop. So I really liked that when I read
Yeah,
that, and
that's cool.
I put a mark in there so I could read that in this discussion. So yeah, I'm now on, and I'll just say this part real quick, is that although I don't know what class I would be in USPSA, I would imagine, frankly, right now somewhere between B and A class, more than likely A. But this section he calls stuck in B class for 2 years, because he's got the hardcore training. I'm just being honest. I don't have the commitment right now on my dry fire to dry fire 30 to 60 minutes a day. I'm just being honest,
Yeah.
because I got too much other things going on. But, and the way that you set this up is week one, Monday, you do elements, anything from trigger control, various aspects of what you would think would just be pure elements, of shooting, reload, so on and so forth. And then standards in that same dry fire. And then Tuesday is scenarios. So you actually set up a scenario. And then Wednesday would be elements again and standards. Standards might be a bill drill, an L pres, so on and so forth, that you're, working on getting your times quicker, but still being honest. You can have misses. You should be, pushing yourself beyond failure when you're dry firing. I know I was guilty of trying to always make things as perfect as possible, but you don't push yourself if you do that. And I don't have to read through each one of these, but it's just a mixture of each day of working those standards and elements and or scenarios, um assorted elements, so on and so forth. But then you also have a day off in this particular program, which I'm not gonna lie, 6 days is still pretty good. And I was dry firing every day for a while, Aaron, but then I do find some days I need a break from it, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm on this 6-day program right now, and I'm following it. I've got it's downstairs right now because I was writing some notes for my live fire today. But I'm got a dry fire notebook like I have in the past, and I'm sticking to that schedule. So with that said, Aaron, I'll get to my live fire here in a second, but I want to talk about my jujitsu right now. And frankly, because I'm healing, I'm not rolling at all. You know,
Yeah.
and it's tough, man, because especially in the morning, sometimes some of my and so let me walk that back a second. I've been doing some positional rounds with my guys, but as far as free rolling, I'm staying away from it. I rolled, a real light round with one of our brown belts who's also been showing up, and also is helping me with class when I'm not there, like I was just on travel. So, but anyway, man, I'm focusing a lot on half guard, knee shield stuff, and basing my attacks and my sweeps off half guard, and it's changing my game quite a bit. And also my top game stuff that I've been working from John Danaher, man, has just made a huge difference in my jujitsu. So moving on, Aaron, I think I've hit the main highlights I really wanted to talk about. But man, I had a pretty damn good live fire session today. I had a lot of fun, and you know, I shot a few. Maybe around 20 or 30 rounds of shooting groups and I was using range master targets today. You know,
I love those targets.
yeah, and they're just all around a great target. And so I worked Ben Stager's doubles drill for about 100 rounds after I shot groups. And again, that observation piece of that drill, and it's funny because I've been guilty of it, Aaron. When I hear somebody shooting double taps, it's like I, I mean, I was thinking, man, that person probably, read about that or heard about it or saw it somewhere and just doesn't, kind of understand. Really most of the time want a sight picture for every shot. Now we know that that's not necessarily true all the time, but the doubles is not an engagement strategy as Matt Pranka and Ben Stagers say. But it's observing what's happening to the front sight and or the red dot, recognizing that it's there, but most importantly is not putting additional input into the gun. And man, I've learned so much doing that drill, man, that it burns up ammo. And I say just
Yeah.
100 rounds. If Ben Stager was ever to hear this, or Matt, Matt's probably listened to our show a little bit. Um, but it's like, man, that's wimp, man. That's wimpy ammo on doubles. But man, it just ammo is expensive. But when I do that drill, I learn a lot. And then I work some of Ernest Langdon's trigger control drills that I learned from him at TacCon, which again, I hadn't been doing that in a while. And every time I do it, it's just so valuable. And frankly, digress in a second, one of the elements drills in Ben Stager's book is the speed pressing the trigger when your finger starts off of the trigger. And he said the goal is to finish pressing the trigger when the end of the beep at the end of the beep of the signal. And man, I've learned so much and how you can learn how to minimize the movement of the gun when you're having to start all the way out off of the trigger. That teaches you a lot. And same with the trigger control drills that learned from Ernest Langdon, which one of those is starting all the way out. One of them is taking slack all the way out. The second one is starting with your finger touching the trigger. And all of them are intended to, once a buzzer goes off, you complete the rep. So work that. And then Aaron, my very first time, I shot the range master instructor qual clean.
Rock on.
And so here's the thing. That's a decent standard. But my biggest issue is that using the time available, man, on the 25-yard piece, man, I'm always shooting that, 8-9 seconds when you got 15.
Yeah.
So I found myself being a lot more patient today on that. So yeah, I was pretty pumped about that. So, and I'll probably post that on in an inset, and also I probably should put that on our social. And that's another thing I was thinking about, Aaron. is I'm thinking of a few strategies to make our social input a little more valuable, more,
Yeah.
not just what we're doing, not what just what, our shows and a kind of a fun post every now and then, but man, try to actually provide some information on there that can be valuable. So folks be looking for that here pretty soon. But other than that, Aaron, I think that's it for me on accountability.
Sounds good, brother. Well, you want to talk a little bit about, I think we're going to maybe touch on a little bit of what's going on in New York. Um,
Yeah, Aaron, when I saw that this week, so for our audience members out, there's a lot that probably know about it, but essentially, Governor or Queen Hochul decided that and I forget what the number is. I think it may be at
750.
yeah, exactly what I was going to say, 700, 750. Um, sending the National Guard armed with M4s, you know, down to the subway systems because of an uptick in crime. And what's interesting is that from what I read, the two violent crime incidences that kind of sparked this was a conductor got his throat slit, I believe, and another, and I think it was maybe a passenger, got hit with a hammer. So again, one of the points I was going to make behind that is you outlaw guns, and you can still get guns down in the subway and criminals do it all the time. But my point is these two incidences didn't even involve a firearm. But anyway, Hochul decides that she's going to station these National Guard members down there. One of their primary functions is to do random bag checks. And I don't know about you, man, but I mean that's a violation of those individuals' Fourth Amendment rights. And Aaron, I think you mentioned it. I also believe it's just simply a ploy to try to catch CCW violators because
Mm.
the subway is being supposedly a safe space. But yeah, man, it amazes me that soft on crime policies, no bail releases, all these leftist ideals in New York City. Yeah, crime is rising, but the answer is, in my opinion, is obviously you know putting violent criminals in jail, but also like you mentioned even a week ago was, man, allow your citizens to carry based off Bruin. Aaron, your thoughts on that situation? I know you had some.
Well, interesting enough. So I was looking at this, and as far as I know, bro, they are only checking bags. So
Yeah,
any, I mean, actually, that's kind of stupid. Now, what I mean is, so people that conceal weapons on themselves, you aren't going to pat them down. Now, the point is, I wonder if they are only checking bags because that's somehow they're legal, or it's not going to be as frowned upon as patting people down. But you're not going to stop people with weapons by looking through their bags.
right.
So it's just this big show, but yet it's a show of a military state. Police,
Yep.
excuse me, not a military, but a police state. When you've got National Guard down there with the M4s. Now, Eric, I did find an article where that didn't look good to all over the country. She got some
Major backlash.
flack over that. But guess what? So they're fading into the background. These soldiers with M4s are still there, but they want them further away from the bag checkpoints. So we still got the police state kind of thing going on here. But Eric, what I did want to say, I mean, read a little bit. I found a little bit of information on this because it gives a little more info into this, and there's also a side issue with it. But so um, I found on Hochul's site where she's announcing doing this, how she's gonna, supplement NYPD's enhanced baggage checks at heavily trafficked areas. This is from her site, and I'm quoting from it. Governor Hochul is deploying 1,000 members of state personnel to assist the NYPD's mission to further this effort. This includes 250 members from the New York State Police and the MTA Police Department. In addition, Governor Hochul is directing the National Guard to make the 750 members currently deployed on Joint Task Force Empire Shield available to supplement this effort under the supervision of law enforcement. These checks will be targeting at heavily trafficked locations. So, and there's a real key issue or point within that statement. Again, this is from her site. Flexing her muscles with a few little shows of some sort of doing something. Putting a bunch of police down there, but at the same time, again, people would be better off being able to protect themselves, not count on police being right next to them. But Eric, what one of the key things there is that she's talking about using these National Guard members from what's called Joint Task Force Empire Shield. So Eric, this gets a little richer. Okay. So what that task force is it is the Joint Task Force Asylum Seeker Resource Support. Its purpose is to support New York State to mitigate human suffering for individuals and families seeking asylum status in the United States. This mission started in October 2022 and is currently the largest state active duty mission in New York State. So what they're saying here, and again, bro, this is from the New York State National Guard website. So it looks like their number one function for the New York National Guard is to help facilitate illegal migrants to, again, settle into the United States, because it's not a question that they're trying to bring in what they know are going to be future voters. I mean, but isn't that interesting, Eric? So,
yeah, I did not know that. So go ahead.
I'm just saying that just made this situation a little richer.
Oh yeah,
that the number one National Guard mission is to help asylum seekers. That's what they're saying is their number one ongoing mission. So now she's kind of doing a portion of that, bringing them in to, show a force to look through people's bags.
Yeah, and Aaron, that is really irritating, because we know what the National Guard's purpose is for states, and that's obviously National Guard can be used for state emergencies, national emergencies as well. But also they're a state, and when they're Title 32, they're state directed, but when they're Title 10, they're national directed. So they would then fall under the president at that point. But, she's obviously using Title 32 to use these soldiers or National Guard members. But yeah, I mean, that is absolutely not a function of the National Guard, is to help usher in quote unquote asylum seekers, which we know are it's a euphemism for illegal aliens, and again, like you said, to bring them into New York City and help them out, give them, thousands and thousands of dollars of taxpayer money, which is a transfer of wealth, all that good stuff. But again, future voters, man. And who knows how many of those, like we've talked about before, are possible terrorists, that have, came into our country under false pretenses. But anyway, yeah, good old New York and good old Queen Hochul, doing, committing more tyranny. But with that said, Aaron, also, did you find it interesting? So, Aaron, hasn't the left told us that walls don't work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a border wall doesn't work, right? So did you find it interesting that this week for the State of the Union, they erected a big ass fence all around the Capitol complex?
I didn't see that.
Yep. And so ever since, um, of course, after January 6th, they erected a huge fence, keeping, the American people out of their capital. But again, now, since 2021, every State of the Union that Biden has given has, for the last 3 years, have had that fence put up. But if walls didn't work, why do they need a fence? I know I'm being facetious, but it just gets aggravating. And of course, another time when they had to put up a wall was when some staffer released the the draft for reversing Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that was purposeful. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. I find it ironic that that when Biden gives a State of the Union, they erect a huge fence, keeping the American people out of their capital. That's our capital, right? And the White House is our White House. Now, granted, Aaron, I understand. I am not. I'm not one to say that the president or you know elected officials don't deserve security, but by golly, we deserve security.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they're accountable to us because that is our capital. But I just wanted to mention that I thought it was kind of ironic that they put that fence up. And Aaron, one last thing, and I think we can get off here on ending on kind of a cool note. I mean, there's all kinds of video of it out there, but UFC 299 was last night. And did you happen to see that rock star um, reception that Trump got?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So, of course, he likes to go to the UFCs pretty often. And yet Dana White walked out with him, and they even put some walkout music for Trump. Man, the crowd was going nuts, man. They also were saying F Joe Biden and all that stuff. Which, I still, even though I might, have some thoughts of my own, there's still a part of me, man, that can be a little bit disrespectful. But at the same time, man, he's disrespectful to our freaking rights. I mean, of course, the State of the Union, Aaron, he out there yelling for banning assault weapons, do something now. I mean, that was a hugely partisan. I didn't mean to go backwards because I was trying to end on a good note. But yeah, I mean, that was a hugely partisan State of the Union. But yeah, back to that Trump thing. That was pretty freaking cool. If you look it up, man, there's all kinds of video of it. It's pretty cool. It,
Interesting.
it kind of a microcosm,
Yeah.
what people believe, support of Trump. So, well, man, I'm looking at the clock, man. We're sitting close to 50 minutes, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little less, but man, it's kind of fun. I hope we didn't
Yeah.
sound like we were just blabbering on. I don't think we did necessarily, but this was fun. We need to do more accountability shows like this. It's hard to do like we used to. I was talking to one of our good friends, Greg. I'll just mention his first name. And a lot of people comment about how, they like hearing the accountability. It's just too hard to do it in individual shows. So this is a way for us to get that out, maybe try to do it in our gear and mindset shows when we can.
Yeah. As the show has expanded and time constraints, it's gotten harder to do that as often as we did before. but we're still being accountable and doing what we say we do. Now, right now, unfortunately, a little bit diminished. But bro, you reminded me. I'm gonna do my best to see how much I can. I'm gonna try to do some lifts tomorrow night.
Cool.
I might have to have my son put the weights on the rack so I can do some squats. But I'm gonna at least I'm
Yeah,
gonna
man.
see what I can do.
If you can, I mean, squats are the most important exercise. The amount of testosterone that squats and deadlifts they produce, but squats, man, if you can do squats, man, that's going to be a lot. I mean, that's what we've been doing when we get injured, man. We do what we can,
Mm-hmm.
so we just modify what we can do. So yeah, man, get that a whirl.
Sounds good, brother. Well, you have a good evening. Sounds like I hear my family coming home. My family's been
Aw-
gone all day. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey man, you have a good evening. Tell the family I said hello, and you guys take care, all right?
all right, bro. You too. Bye bye.